What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Nothing But Skills, and today we're bringing you guys another division video. Today's video is going to be focused on the build that I've been waiting for so long to build because I was missing one piece. I went through 2 global events and didn't get the D3 holster, and that's what I've really been waiting for, guys. I am finally able to bring you this build, and I'm excited to show you everything I'm able to do with it and then talk a little bit about it. I think this is probably one of the best support builds in the game right now, and I love running this support build just as much as I like running Final Measure. So let's get into this build. We're going to go over what D3 defense build does. For all of you newer players, this is going to be really helpful. For you veterans, just give me a few and we're going to go right into the build right after this. What set bonus 2 does, it gives you an additional 15% protection from elites. That's why this build is amazing in PvE, because every time you're fighting those elites / gold enemies, you're going to get that additional 15% just rocking the 2-piece. Now when you put the 3-piece, you're going to get the 3-piece bonus, which is an additional 10% ballistic shield damage resilience, which is great for your shield. What set bonus 4 is going to do is allows you to use a SMG when you have the ballistic shield equipped. Before, you were only allowed to use a pistol, but when you rock the 4-piece D3, you're allowed to use the SMG. That's why it's amazing when you have at least 4 pieces on. But one thing you need to take into consideration is now that when you wear the 4-piece, you no longer get any of the other mods. What I mean is now you only get the master rank shield mod. All the other mods you were able to add in the past, you no longer are able to do that. Now ballistic shield health is increased by 57% for every 3,000 stamina. So once you get to 9,000 stamina, that's where you want to be with this build, because you're going to get that additional 57% shield health for every 3,000 stamina. So if you times that times 3, that's 171% extra shield health when you have 9,000 stamina. That's why having 9,000 stamina on your shield builds is key. And we're going to keep going into the build, and I'll explain it a little bit more as we break down the whole build. Now set bonus 5 is going to give you an additional 15% protection from elites, so that's a total of 30% protection from elites, because set bonus 2 already gives you 15%. Now set bonus 5 also gives you an additional 5% ballistic shield damage resilience, and that is on top of the set bonus 3, which is already 10%, so you have a total of 15% ballistic shield damage. And then set bonus 6, which makes this build so good when you're running in a team, and you can even solo a lot of PvE missions. Now this build is spec'd into PvE. My PvP version of this will be released later on. I'm still working out what I really want to run on the build. You can run this in a team setting, or you can run this solo. Now why it's so good is set bonus 6 gives you a talent called Improve Frontline. When ballistic shield is deployed, melee damage is increased by 2,000%. Now you really don't melee too much, but when NPCs do get up on you, you can melee them and you'll get that additional 2,000%. And all overhealing the player receives is applied to the ballistic shield as healing. So what it means is if someone has a strong heal and they hit you with the overdose, your shield's also going to get healed. When you drop your box on the ground and you explode it, that also provides overheal. So stuff like that will help your shield stay up, because remember, once it takes damage, it starts to lose health, and once all that health is gone, your shield would go away, and then you'll have to wait for the cooldown. After reaching a damage threshold from receiving physical or exotic damage, the ballistic shield grants a buff to all players in that group. So not only you, but all players in that group within 15 meters for 6 seconds. So the duration of that buff is increased by 2 seconds for every 3,000 stamina. So if you're running 9,000 stamina, that's an additional 6 seconds. So a total of 12 seconds, everybody will have that buff. Now the physical damage armor is increased by 30%, so that's anytime you're taking any bullet damage. Now exotic damage is more those grenades, so anytime you get hit with a grenade, it will start to trigger this. Now it takes 2 grenades to get that exotic damage, so that's that weapon damage is increased by 30%. So most of the time what you'll see is everybody's getting that armor increased by 30% for 12 seconds. When people start spamming those grenades, that exotic damage is going to kick in, and then everybody's going to get that additional 30% weapon damage. Now imagine if you're running this with a final measure, and your final measure catches a grenade and then you get hit with 2 grenades right after that. That's a lot of damage you have output. So the way you can tell if you have the buff is right on the left hand above your shield. You're going to see the buff, and you can see all your team that has that buff. The plus sign, of course, that's going to be the armor, and then the bullet, of course, that's going to be the weapon damage. So anytime you see those buffs, that's when you have that 30% extra armor or 30% extra weapon damage. When you're at 9,000 stamina, the ballistic shield health is also increased by another 200%. So being being at 9,000 stamina, that is where you want to be to get the max health for your shield. You get the additional 200% here, and then for the 4-piece you also get the 57% for every 3,000 stamina. So adding that all together, you're going to have a lot of health. So we're going to go into exactly how much health my shield has and where you guys should be. So if we break down the build, we're going to go into the chest piece. It's rolled stamina, it has health, it has enemy armor damage, and it has ammo capacity. Like I tell you in a lot of my builds, is you always want to have enemy armor damage, because as you start doing those challenging legendary missions and those heroic incursions, you're going to notice that a lot of the NPCs have a lot of armor, and stacking more enemy armor damage is going to help you melt through that armor. For the mods, I'm running stamina mods with skill haste. So the reason why I'm stacking skill haste on here is because I want to be able to get my ballistic shield back in case it does go down a lot faster, and then whatever my second skill that I plan on using. Since I do run this build a lot in resistance solo, I feel that having the skill haste is going to help you get your skills back a lot quicker, and you're going to see how fast I can get my shield back and how fast I can get my secondary skill back. For the mask, it has firearms, the major attribute is skill power, and then the minor attribute is damage to elites. So that's another thing you want to stack on all your PvE builds, is damage to elites. So anytime you fight those elite enemies, so that's gold enemies or above, you will get that additional damage. So having a lot of damage to elite stacked on your build is going to help you drop those elite enemies a lot faster. And then one thing you're going to want to do throughout this build is stack skill power, because you want to hit the minimum threshold of 121 to 125 to max out your shield. To reach that 121 to 125 skill power, you're going to have to stack skill power on at least 3 pieces of your gear set. For the mods, I'm running a stamina mod with 3% skill haste. For the knee pads, the rolled stamina, the major attribute is skill power. So this is the second piece that I'm going to roll skill power on there. And then for the minor attributes, I have shock, damage to elites, and bleed resistance. I would like to have burn instead of shock. And then of course you want to have damage to elites on your knee pads, because that's an additional 12%. So you stack that with your mask, and we're already at 24% damage to elites. For the backpack, it's rolled stamina, the major attribute is skill power, and the minor attribute is disrupt resistance. For the mods, I'm running stamina mods with skill haste, and the skill haste, like I told you before, is to get my skills back a little bit quicker. And then for the performance mods, I'm stacking 5% ballistic shield damage resilience. And then once I finish stacking ballistic shield damage resilience throughout this whole build, you're going to see how much ballistic shield damage I have. For the gloves, the rolled stamina, the major attributes are enemy armor damage, critical hit chance, and SMG damage. Now, if you didn't want to have critical hit chance on here, you could put something like health on kill, but since I'm going to be running an SMG, I felt like let me stack an additional 6% critical hit chance on here. I'm going to hit the NPCs a little bit harder. Of course, you want to have enemy armor damage and then SMG damage, since that's going to be my primary when I'm using my shield. For the last piece, we're going to have the holster. This is where you're going to want to stack skill haste on here, because you're going to want to take the benefit of getting as much skill haste on this build as you can. Since we're not putting skill haste on the gloves or on the chest piece, we could put the additional 7% skill haste on the holster, and that's going to help me get my skills back a little bit quicker, since I am stacking skill haste on all my mods. For the performance mod, we're going to have the 5% ballistic shield damage resilience. Also, I forgot to mention, on the mods on the knee pad, we're running stamina mods with skill haste, and then of course we're running 5% ballistic shield damage resilience. So that's an additional 20% total ballistic shield damage resilience on this build. So before we break down the weapons, let's go into the skills so I can show you the ballistic shield. So the shield I'm using is the base ballistic shield, because remember, once you have the 4-piece, it eliminates you having any of these mods. You do get the master self-healing armor, which is after a short time without taking any damage, the shield slowly repairs itself to full health. So that's the only mod you're going to have, and that's because of the 4-piece. You no longer get these mods, you only get the master mod, so that's that self-healing armor. If we look at the basic shield or the master shield, they're going to be the same. So the total health I have on this is going to be 2,350,000 heal points. My damage is going to be increased by 10%, so that damage is including when I shoot my SMG. The damage resistance is going to be 45%. Now my threat increase is 200%, so that means that the NPCs are going to focus their damage towards me. Now if you look at me having my skill haste, it's going to let me get my ballistic shield back every 24 seconds. If I didn't have that, it would take a lot longer. If I didn't have that skill haste on there, you can see it would be 41 seconds. So I'm cutting that in almost half by just having skill haste on this build. And then with my talents, it might come back even faster. I personally, when I'm running solo, I like pairing that up with a support station. And the one I've been using is the ammo cache, just depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing resistance, I definitely use the ammo cache. And this is going to come back every 26 seconds. So you can see the regular cooldown time on this is 38 seconds. But because of my skill haste, it's coming back every 26 seconds. I like pairing that up with certain talents. Now the talents I love running with this build are going to be critical save. So when I use a med kit during low health, It's going to increase my damage resistance by 20% for 10 seconds. I like having it with strike back, so every time I do reach low health, that reduces my active skill cooldowns by 20%. So that helps with my skill haste. My shield comes back faster, my ult comes back faster, and then of course my healing station comes back faster. So the next two talents is up to you. I personally like running tech support. You kill a hostile while any skill is deployed to extend active skill duration by 10%. Now this helps keep my ammo box up, especially when I'm running solo in PvE. Now if I wasn't running solo, I would more likely put on something like precision. Every time I'm going to headshot an enemy, I'm going to pulse them for 10 seconds, and then I'm going to get a lot more damage on those NPCs. And then also I would put on the move kill a hostile while moving to reduce incoming damage by 15% for 10 seconds. But since this global event does have shock bullets, I've been running fear tactics. Now once this global event's over, I'm going to put on the move on, and the reason why I'm running fear tactics is because applying shock to any target triggers a 30% chance per each target in a 10 meters radius to shock them. If we go into the guns that I'm using, I'm running a house. This SMG is not fully optimized, so the critical hit chance on here is 21.5%. The base damage is 17.2k, and that's with only running firearms of 4,100. The talents I want to use on this build, since I am running only 4,000 firearms and I'm running 9,000 stamina, is predatory. So every time I do kill a target, it's going to regenerate my health for 35% of that health over 20 seconds. Now since I'm running 9,000 stamina, that's going to be a lot of health. That's why running a house that has predatory on it works really good with this build, because you're taking a lot of damage, and once you kill an NPC, you're automatically healing yourself and you never have to even run a heal. Now if you want to run an overdose, you can. Also, I always like running destructive on my PvE builds. Armor destruction value is increased by 15% when using this weapon, so I'm going to get an additional 15% enemy armor damage when I run the house. And then of course the final talent on the house is card counter. The way I have this house modded is I'm running a pro red dot sight with critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and headshot damage. Allow vent break with critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and headshot damage. I stack that with a small grip that has critical hit damage, reload speed, and optimal range, and extended magazine with magazine size, critical hit chance, and rate of fire. The next talent I love running on this build is destructive. Armor destructive values increased by 15% when using this weapon. Now when I'm not running predatory and I'm not running destructive, I do like using a different house, and that house is going to be the house that has hurried and deadly. Now for my secondary, it's going to be this lightweight M4. This has 22% enemy armor damage, and I like having this. Assault rifles have enemy armor damage, and if I can get into a position where I have cover, I don't have to have my shield out. I can just get in cover and then just shoot the enemies down as they're pushing me. Now the base damage on this is only 13.8k. This has really good talents. It has a destructive. Armor destructive values increased by 15% when using this weapon. It has deadly. Critical hit damage is increased by 15%. I personally would probably like to have something like predatory on here instead of deadly. And then my bottom slot, which I love for PvE, especially if you get into cover and you want to get your skills back faster. Say your shield blows up and you get into cover, killing a target reduces all skill cooldowns by 7.5%. So you stack that with the skill haste I have on here, and I should get my shield back really fast and then also get my secondary skill back. The way I like having this mod is I stack a little bit more critical hit chance on my assault rifles since they don't have critical hit chance like SMG. So I have critical hit chance, critical hit damage, headshot damage. For the muzzle, I have critical hit damage, headshot damage, critical hit chance. For the small grip, I have critical hit damage, reload speed, stability. And then for the magazine, I have magazine size, reload speed, and critical hit chance. So we go into the character stats. You're going to see my house has 36% critical hit chance. The critical hit damage is 81%. The headshot damage is 62%. Damage to elites is going to be 24%. Enemy armor damage is going to be 29%. My skill haste is going to be 22%. My max health is going to be 397,000. My armor mitigation is almost maxed out at 33%. Protection from elites is 30%. Bleed resistance is 31%. Disrupt resistance is 17%. And then shock resistance is 28%. So that's pretty much my build, guys. This is how I recommend running the D3 for PvE. I've been running the same build solo and in team. So you can run the same exact build in a team and then also in a solo setting. And if you haven't been running your build like this, try it out. See how you guys like it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you guys have any question on this build, let me know in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video and love D3 just like me, hit that thumbs up. I just want to say thank you guys again for all the support. I will be working on a PvP version of this, but for now, guys, enjoy this PvE version of D3 defense. And remember, if you don't see me in last stand, if you don't see me skirmish, if you don't see me in the dark zone, it's only a matter of time. Nothing but skills out.